Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Many Americans within the United States of America have long thought about racism being over, but little do they know that a new phase is just beginning. Many Americans that went through post-secondary programs learned that both racial segregation and racial discrimination is something that all African Americans are familiarized with. But little do they know is that the most feared race within America is African Americans. This is I Am a Threat.
A threat because my hair is natural and it's not silky straight.
I'm a black woman who knows hard work. Because of my culture, I'm black and I'm smart.
I'm biracial. I'm a threat because I'm intelligent, and I'm a threat because I'm creative.
African culture is something that has a prominent history imprint within society. Most people know the origins of African Americans and the culture of Africans, but do we really know enough? African culture goes back all the way before biblical times, where many religious historians have made analysis that African people played a crucial role in the life and crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Within the Bible, many accounts detail Jesus Christ as a tan-skinned man, which prompted many historians to conclude that Jesus was treated poorly not because of his identity as a Jew, but because of his skin color. But I had to get expert knowledge from Randy Young, who is a current instructor at Tyner Academy on the New and Old Testament about African involvement within biblical history.
Well, the Old Testament is pretty silent about anybody of African descent. But you get some more information in the New Testament, which is really fascinating. Old Testament is pretty silent because there wasn't much interaction between the people of Israel. They actually spent some time in Egypt, which is, of course, in Africa, the continent Africa. But you divide Africa into two sections. You got the Saharan section, and then you got the sub-Saharan section. The Saharan section, the people were ethnically a little bit different. They would have been just a little bit lighter skinned than sub-Saharan, obviously. So there was not much interaction with sub-Saharan Africans in the Old Testament. Now, the New Testament, that's a whole different story, because I can think of at least 3 examples of interaction with individuals of African descent, mainly sub-Saharan African. You've got 3 characters. I'll kind of run through them real quick, and it's kind of fascinating when you look at it. The first person that we actually kind of come across is a man by the name of Simon of Cyrene. And Simon of Cyrene was from northern Africa, and we're not 100% sure about his ethnicity. More than likely, he probably was mixed, and he would have definitely been an African, because that's where Cyrene was from, northern Africa. The story goes that when Jesus was carrying the cross and he was physically exhausted, he was beaten, he was bleeding, and he would been up all night in that trial that they put on about him. He was no longer capable of carrying the cross, and so the Roman soldiers pulled this man out of the crowd. I don't know exactly why they pulled him out of the crowd. Maybe it was because he was either mixed or of African descent. It's hard to say. It doesn't really say in the scriptures, but you almost can kind of read between the lines. So they pulled him out, and they made him carry the cross after Jesus physically could not carry the cross anymore. And he would have carried the crossbar of the cross, and that would have been massively heavy. Everyone had to carry their cross, and Jesus was brutally whipped and lost a lot of blood, probably would have had no strength. They pulled him out of the crowd to be able to carry it, Simon of Cyrene. And Simon of Cyrene, depicted very well in the movie Passion of the Christ. You can actually look at him ethnically. He probably would have been very much like the character that they portrayed in the movie. He had to carry the cross. They would have beaten him. They would have whipped him if he wouldn't have.
But when people generally open up a history book, they don't think of people like Simon of Cyrene. Instead, they think of slavery and prominent figures such as Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, or even John Lewis. But even as a journalist, I had to get expert knowledge on this topic. So I spoke with Erin Glenn in an exclusive audio interview, who is a former social studies teacher, and she helped us touch the water on both African American history and American history.
So African American history is American history. It's all one and the same. If you trace African Americans to the colonial period in the early 16 and 1700s, African Americans through indentured servitude and through slavery were very prominent in the southern colonial region. So to consider American history, you're also examining African American history as leaders during colonial America.
And according to Christopher Whitfield, who is a current world history teacher and award-winning journalist at Tyner Academy, says that most people not knowing the full aspect of segregation and stereotypes within America's society is, quote, a failure of our own educational system. What you know about African American history?
Not enough. That's the thing that I know about African American history. One of the things that I'm extremely fascinated about, especially I'm a person who grew up in South Georgia, and growing up with all the different cultures and dialects, I grew up in areas where they still speak a language that is a foreign language, Geechee and Gullah. So, I mean, the thing that all of us need to know is more. We all need to know more. I don't know enough about African American history, and it's a failure of our education system that more people don't know.
Let me educate everyone that doesn't know so much about African or African American history in the modern era. It all started in the 17th and 18th century, where European colonists embarked on a trip to Africa for exports, to soon then arrive to Africa and see a race that was completely different from theirs. This then prompted them to start the process of exploiting slaves for hard labor by stripping them from their home and forcing them into a ship with others, where they were then led to a colony that was unknown to them as a community. The main reason why African Americans and Africans alike are degraded is because of their difference. Many people don't know that one of the main reasons why Africans were taken from their original land was because they were viewed as aggressive, foreign to the regular, and mentally inhumane. And the sad reality is that most Africans were forced to change the customs that they had acquired in their homeland. One example is a powerful one that the Huffington Post detailed in an article stating that in the U.S., head wraps were imposed on black women as a badge of enslavement by white masters. In this way, the head covering was used to distinguish between black people without power from those who held it. In resilience, Africans fashionably abided by the rule by designing and making extreme designs that would be considered as visually appealing and beautiful to the naked eye as possible. Throughout the process, Africans and African Americans have tried to display their resilience by participating in protests and community organizations where they have showcased that they, as all races, should be treated just as whites are. Protests here in the city of Chattanooga have become significantly historical in recent months, as many people are showing up and hitting on hard topics such as segregation and discrimination through stereotyping. But according to my interview with Mayor Andy Burke in 2019, these kind of activities and displays of resilience is exactly what the city of Chattanooga needs to battle their own past regarding stereotypes and segregation through discrimination.
Up for just a minute and make sure that we're all on the same page. You know, the struggle for Black freedom has been going on in our country for 400 years. This is something that is incredibly important. And as we talk about how to make progress, you know, we need lots of people at the table. And I think one of the things that has been really heartening to me over the course of the last few months is how many people who may not have been involved in the process before are coming out to speak up and to speak their minds. That's really good for our city, our state, and our country.
But according to multiple historic accounts, stereotypes amongst both Africans and African Americans have been going on during and after the extent of slavery. Outside of printing, the first reference to stereotype was in 1850 as a noun that meant image perpetuated without change. However, it was not until 1922 that stereotype was first used in the modern psychological sense by American journalist Walter Lippmann. Throughout African and African American history, stereotyping has been a way of closure for whites, especially in the 1960s, which is in historical Texas, a time where African Americans or Africans couldn't do anything to defend themselves in fear of being killed or having their family hurt. In the modern era, stereotypes are hidden blindly in media, magazines, social and scientific statistics, and the most famous, social media. One of the most recent claims that have caught my eye was that a statistic was released stating that African Americans are more subjected to catching HIV than any other race. So I had to speak to Danielle Mullins, who is a current health science teacher at Tyner Academy, on if this statistic is reporting the truth.
So it's true and it's not true. It's all in the wording. So we're seeing an increase in African American cases. And we are contributing that to more of a socioeconomic issue. It's not that if you're black, you're at risk of getting HIV because you're black. It's because we're seeing higher levels of poverty, and with that comes insufficient health care. It is, you've got people that don't have proper housing. They're house to house. You don't know who they're coming into contact every day. And so the biggest part of HIV is knowing that you have it. Someone that has HIV and knows that they have it and they're taking their medication and everything like that, they're way more safe than somebody who's going untreated, misdiagnosed, undiagnosed.
And to add on to that, HIV isn't the only statistic or stereotype that has been constantly brought up in the vicinity of African Americans. Throughout our educational system, students at Tyner Academy have beat the odds by producing an award-winning student body to both represent Tyner Academy and the whole city of Chattanooga. We as a school have been attacked by bias, press, social media trolls, and college measurements that have identified us as average. Us as students are the future and have the power to break the odds by being different, standing out, and reaching to local lawmakers calling on changes in urban schools. But even after all of this, why do some people still decide to view us as a threat, even when we do things that only the white man can do?
Use African Americans as a threat. Well, I think that part of the deal is that a lot of people fear people that they don't know. And if people don't get out and get to know people and see their heart and see who they are as people and their character, then you fear the unknown. And I don't get all of that, because if people took the time to be able to get to know other people, good people, I mean, they say cream rises to the top. And if you get to know people, the good people, no matter what religion, race, creed, whatever, if they're good people, they are good people. There's no reason to fear. But I think that a lot of people of European descent, I think, probably have some fear just because they don't understand. They don't know. They don't know some of the issues. They don't know them as people. Some people don't try to get to know people of African descent. And being a teacher here for now 18 years, man, I tell you, it just breaks my heart that there's some people that make assumptions that they have no idea about.
View African Americans as a threat.
I think insecure people view African Americans as a threat. I don't view African Americans as a threat. I'm standing right here looking at you, respecting everything that you're doing. People who are afraid of other people and who are not willing to educate themselves about other people are afraid of other people.
How does society view African Americans as a threat?
You know, this question has come up to me before, and I look at this as, this is something, when it comes to African Americans, I feel that, a lot of things when it comes to discrimination, so much of this, stems from years and years and years ago. I remember my grandparents telling me about how certain things happened when they were growing up in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. So I personally feel as if, this is something that I feel like racism and things like that are stereotypes. When people feel like they're labeling someone, it is something that is taught to someone. A person doesn't come out of no one's born and they say, you know what, Jaylan is an African-American male, I can't talk to him. Or Greg is an African-American male, I don't want to talk to him. As a kid, when you see kids playing in kindergarten or preschool, it doesn't matter if they're white, black, Asian, Latino, kids are kids, and kids are going to play with each other. So when it comes to these stereotypes and, judging different people, that is something that is taught. And so you have to find the people in your life who are going to appreciate Jaylan for Jaylan and what Jaylan has to bring to the table. So in my case, I appreciate the people who appreciate Greg.
Society views African Americans as a threat.
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think there's one reason. I think there's so many things. I think one thing is that we like answers, and I think we all think that we're better than somebody. And I think African Americans Americans. You have culture, and you have all these things that make you so great, and you know who you are. So many of you can tell me who your great-grandparents are. You can tell me just information about your whole culture. And I think where that struggles is we are so disconnected in the Caucasian community. Some people can't even tell you who their grandparents are. Some people, we just have so much disconnect in who we are. I think that a lot of us are envious and we don't want to say it.
All of the answers given, there's only one answer that stands out the most, and that is according to Kathy Butler and E.J. Ward, who says society views us as a threat not because of our skin color, but because of our freedom to obtain knowledge. Knowledge is something that the whites have tried to strip from our minds, where even during times of slavery, reading and writing were prohibited. But in the new millennium, African Americans have broken through another barrier by becoming scholars at top schools such as Stanford, Harvard, and many more Ivies. African Americans have also produced valedictorians and career-ready prospects who talk, act, and work as a white man would.
Take the important action by speaking with both local and international politicians, we would soon end a stop to what America would call its biggest challenge. This is Jaylan Sims, and this is I Am a Threat.
Why are you a threat?
I'm a threat because I'm educated. I'm a threat because I have dreams. I'm a threat because I walk around with a black hoodie. Like, I'm a threat because I'm creative. I'm a threat because I'm smart. Because I am